Greetings, everyone. Good morning, or good afternoon, or good night, wherever in the world you're tuning in from. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is our global
Good morning, or good
agenda.
afternoon, or good night, wherever in the world you're tuning in from.
So this mental student mental health week will be focusing on destigmatizing mental health, and this is sponsored by US Elite International, um, and this is also with collaboration with the Varkey Foundation and CHEG, which is also the sponsor or the launcher of the Global Student Prize. So thank you so much for joining us. The Varkey Foundation has really partnered with CHEG to launch the inaugural Student Mental Health Week on a global scale. And this was from February 6th to 12th to really raise awareness about student mental health today. And as we know today in the global community, we really have to come together to spread awareness on mental health, destigmatize it, and really support our students worldwide, especially pre-pandemic. The topic of discussion today is, again, Student Mental Health Week and destigmatizing mental health. And we want to really make sure that our students are okay every day. So we ask ourselves, are our students okay? So I'm going to go ahead and have my speakers introduce themselves. We have really brought together a really good group of Global Teacher Prize ambassadors and also some students to really share their experiences and their expertise with you today. So stay tuned and make sure that you have your notebooks out to take some really good information that you can always take back to your classrooms or even apply to your own personal lives. So I'm going to ask my speakers to introduce themselves. I'm going to start off with Dr. Idek.
So, hello everyone. I am Suhajon Idik. I'm a teacher based in Malaysia. So, at my school, I'm an English language teacher, and I'm also the head of research and innovation. So, it's my job to do research and also to find solutions to any problems that we are able to identify. And mental health is one of it. And we have just started our mental health project since a few months ago. I think that's all. That's all from me. Thank you. Thank you very much, Keisha.
Thank you. And we'll go on to KA.
Thank you very much. My name is K.A. Razia. I'm from Malaysia. Um, I've been teaching for 34 years, and at present I already retired as special education specialist teacher. But anyhow, I still go on with my life in teaching on freelance for the special kids, for teachers, lecturers, and students, and also for parents, because I'm retired but not expired.
I really like that, KA. Retired but not expired, still giving your best to education. Thank you. And we thank you for your 34 years in education and all of your contribution. We'll go now to Silvana.
Hello, my name is Silvana Carnicero. I'm coming from Buenos Aires, Argentina. I teach English as a foreign language for my students. I am also the head of a bilingual school, and my main area of expertise is, apart from English, the use of technology in the classroom. And for many years, I have been specializing in the use of telecollaborative global projects.
Thank you so much, Silvana. And we'll go to Dr. Silburn.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank you for hosting me and giving me this opportunity to participate in this so important event. Uh, My name is Sultan Al Enazi from Saudi Arabia. I have PhD degree in education. I have been teaching since 2005. I have published some article in ISI journal over the world. I have many initiatives. Last one is in Niger, Niamey City, to improve our students there how to be creative.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sultan. So we're going to go ahead and move on to Jimmy.
Hi everyone, my name is Jimmy and I'm a college student. I am studying political science and I would like to thank Mr. for having me over here.
Thank you, Jimmy. And we'll go on to the next person, Jakai.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Jakai. I am a biology student at the University of Maryland in College Park. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to help and educate everyone about mental health and its importance to our physical health and overall well-being.
All right, thank you, Jakai. And now we'll move on to Catherine. Is Catherine here? Okay.
Still, good. Guy, you're muting. Hi, hi everyone. My name is Catherine Nakabugo from Uganda. I'm a Global Teacher Prize Ambassador for 2018 from Uganda. I'm a teacher of mathematics and I'm also a director of a foundation that supports teenage mothers and out of school girls. Thank you, Keisha, for inviting me.
All right, thank you so much. That's our illustrious panel. And one thing I would like to say is I want to really highlight Jakai, because Jakai was also one of the persons who was instrumental when this opportunity came, when she saw the Global Student Health Week. She wanted to really make sure that we do something to highlight some of the challenges that students have to experience during this time. And what better way to have a student really lead this initiative in terms of making us understand how important this is to them. And that's why she had pushed me to really organize this panel of teachers and also students, because she wanted to make sure that we really spend some time to focus on this. And hopefully this panel is something that will continue to mark its presence as a part of the Global Student Health Mental Health Week as the years go by, because we think this is so important. Mental health for students is extremely important because it impacts their academics, it impacts their social well-being, and just their personal life in general. And so we have to make sure that all of our students are well. And if they are not well, we have to make sure that we give them the tools to be able to navigate, not just in our classroom, but beyond the walls of our classroom as they go out to live more productive lives in the world. And not just for students in K-12 education, but we also want to acknowledge all of our college students and all of our non-traditional students, because we do have adults who are students as well, who also experience a lot of different traumas and also a lot of different challenges as they really try to grapple and balance work life and school life and personal life. So thank you all for everyone who's tuning in. And if you're tuning in, wherever you're tuning in from, could you please go ahead and put your name in the chat? And also add your country, because we want to make sure that we are recognizing you and we're thanking you for being a part of this with us today, and also celebrating Student Mental Health Week and helping us to destigmatize a lot of the myths around mental health. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into our forum. So I want to really start off with Dr. Sultan. So Dr. Sultan, I know that you have some experience with mental health. Could you go ahead and tell us what constitute mental health, especially for students?
Thank you for your. Can you hear me, please?
Yes.
Okay. When we talk about adjustment, we talk about adjustment. Adjustment, there are many different types of adjustment. There is a psychological adjustment. I mean, student self concept, student self confidence, self esteem. We are talking about internal factors, how to feel happiness inside, how to feel self confidence. This is the first one. Second one, we are talking about social adjustment, my relationship with my teachers, my relationship with my students, with my achievement level, also my relationship with my parents, with my neighbors, as well as we are talking about the absence of illnesses. Students who feel or students who suffers from, for example, diabetes, of course, the level of mental health will be decreased. So we are talk about adjustment, self-confidence, the feeling of happiness, the feeling of be loved from the others. Also, I feel people will respect me. These are the components of the mental health.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you for sharing that broad perspective of mental health. Because I think when a lot of people hear about mental health, and again, we're trying to destigmatize some things, right? I think when they hear about mental health, the first thing people say is that, oh, you're going crazy, and they're not quite sure what that entails or why people behave the way they behave and all of the other components that are involved in mental health. So thank you for sharing some of that. So Dr. Silburn, could you just jump in and tell us what are some of the mental health illnesses that students in general typically experience?
So hello. So that's the second question.
What are some of the mental health uh, what are some of the mental health illnesses that students experience in general?
Well, mental health illnesses, uh, we can differentiate it with mental health itself. Well, mental health is a form, like what has been explained before. It's an emotional, psychosocial issues students uh, might have with their surroundings, and sometimes this might lead or this might be symptoms to something that is more serious, and that might be mental health illnesses. And when we talk about mental health illnesses, that will be bipolar disorder, and all sort of illnesses that we usually associate with mental health.
All right, so Dr. Silburn, do you want to go ahead and add to that, Dr. Silburn? Oh, so I'm sorry. Dr. Silburn is actually not on the stream. So we'll go ahead and ask KA. KA, could you go ahead and share some perspectives on that as well? You're on mute. You're on mute.
Yeah, all right. There is a crack in everything. That's how the lights goes in. So there is always a my problem in everyone. But when a person have a very sincere mental health, now we must try to help them. And there are a few categories of mental health illness that students typically experience, such as anxiety disorder. They have a phobia, stress, panic disorder, or behavioral and emotional disorder, such as ADHD, attention deficit disorder, um, panic attack, intense feeling of sad or happy. Also, number three is depression. Sometimes they feel low in mood, they have loss of interest and appetite. They have also events whereby they feel so sad until the extent where they have suicidal attempt and behavior. When a person has depression, they also have reduced in energy and they have a lot of problem, health problem. They feel sick. Number four is post-traumatic stress disorder, whereby this disorder, when they have faced some incidents such as changing school or moving to a new house, or parents who are divorced or separations, or sometimes they involved in the bullying or sex assault, or sometimes they have physical or violence, and also war-related events. And one more is nature disaster such as bushfire, flood, and earthquake, like what happened in Turkey. You know, it's so sad. Well, I heard that in Turkey there is death already 23,000 and injured 77,000. In Syria also. So we pray so that Turkey and Syria will be helped by God. So, and then the next one is the common one is also schizophrenia, whereby the student will face disruptions or to think of emotions, hallucination, delusion, social withdrawal, and sometimes this student will have lack of motivation and they impair in thinking and memory, and they will not interested in anything, and they will always try to, they're feeling drift to somewhere else that we don't really know. So those are seven criteria of mental health illness that is typical for students.
My goodness, that's a lot. And students, and would you say students can experience many of those symptoms together?
Yeah, sometimes there is double what you call double illness. Sometimes they have who have ADHD, attention deficit hyperactive disorder. They also have emotional disorder. They also have behavioral disorder. So sometimes not even, they don't even have one, maybe they have two, double, multiple, something like that.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate you. And one thing you mentioned as well, you mentioned, the experiences of people who are in Turkey at the moment. So I want to just take a moment to recognize the students and the families and just everyone, business owners, everyone in Turkey who has been affected by the earthquake and the trauma and just everything that's going on. We really are saying a prayer for you, and we're just really hoping that you come out of this on the stronger end. So we just want to take a moment to really just let you know that you are in our prayers and we're looking out for you. And for all the teachers and students, as again, we're really wishing the best for you. And like you said earlier, KA, when this is also how students develop some of those mental health illnesses as well, because this cannot really be healthy and a healthy period for students to go through, losing their families, losing their schools, their communities, their homes. And if they go back to the classroom, we pray to God, they go back to the classroom. There's going to be a lot of work around mental health to bring them back into a place where they're ready to learn, because the trauma of those natural disasters is not really easy to overcome, especially for younger children who have experienced, again, in those regions, multiple traumas. So we're really, our condolences go out to those families, and you're in our prayers today. So I just wanted to take some time to say that. And as they're relocating and whatever becomes of those students wherever they're going, we're really hoping that these teachers take those things into consideration and really work with these students and understand that mental illness is real, and it's something that we need to make sure that we address. So we're going to Kathy, do you want to just jump in and just tell us what are some of the main causes of the rise of mental illness with our students today, especially in our modern society? Catherine, are you there? Catherine, we can't hear you. All right, we do acknowledge that there are some technology challenges across the world, and of course, we know when we're doing something like this, especially live, there can be different challenges. But I just want to jump in and right at Kathy's, and one of the things I did bring up is, especially today, when we see a lot of violence and a lot of natural disasters. Those are some things that can really have a great impact on student mental health. Does anyone want to jump in and tell us what are some of the causes of the rise in mental health in our modern day students?
Well, I believe that they spend many hours alone. They spend many hours in front of technological devices. They sleep really few hours. You have students coming to school and almost falling asleep, or students who don't respect the typical meals because they jump over different meals because they sleep. So they don't come to school with in the right conditions, I guess. And on top of that, the effect of the pandemic has been strong in many students. This question of being in the lockout diminished students' mental health, I believe.
Thank you so much for that, Silvana. Yeah, you're so correct. With the modern students, they have just so much going on. Me in particular, I teach immigrant and refugee students, and some of those students have to work. Then they have to go home and help out with their siblings. Then they have to come to school the next day, and they're tired, they're sleepy, and then they have to make sure that they attend to the rigors of academics in that classroom that day. And some of them may not have eaten. And of course, because most of my students are from low income families, most of them don't necessarily always get adequate nutrition. And those are some of the things that can also impact students' mental health and their learning as well. So thank you so much for sharing some of those issues. Um, so I would like Ka and Kathy. Could you just follow up and just tell us, how do you identify, like, some of the things that was just shared? How can we identify that those are some of the things that are making our students spiral and having a crisis in the classroom? How do we identify a student who is having a crisis at that moment, a mental health crisis? Ka, you wanna start us off?
Okay, no problem. All right. Actually, each student are unique. There are none of them are the same. Sometimes we can see another student shows a different kind of behavior. Maybe this student before they are very active in class, but suddenly their mood change, their behavior will shift to a mood swing is entirely different. Before these students are very active, suddenly they did not like to involve in the lesson. They love to be alone, and they feel that everything seems not to be okay for them. So they have a change rapidly in emotions, and some of the students maybe they turn to become a heavy drinker or also have drugs. So there are also students who have poor emotional and self-regulation. They cannot control an unexpected drama or trauma in class, and suddenly they burst into anger. um, the emotional response of them are different. So there must be something wrong with them. So as a teacher, we must always be careful and have a look. There are also students who have appetite change, whereby, especially those students who have one more mental sickness, there is eating disorder. Yeah, eating disorder is something, mental illness that also face more among girls. Uh, because while some people who have this mental illness, eating disorder, there are also anorexia, whereby they try to be control their eating because they love to be thin, and some they are binge eating. They eat too much, and some of them maybe they have bulimia, whereby they eat and they try to spit out. So we can see if there is a student who try to control in eating, so there must be something, some problem with them. And one more thing, like in eating disorder, the most difficult one and the most pity one, when they have they call it pica eating disorder. This pica eating disorder, they don't eat only food, but they eat safety pin, they eat nail, spoon. There is also a doctor found in a psychiatric patient. There are 1,446 items that is not food. What is that? 42 screws, 453 nails, and also salt and pepper shaker tops. You can see, when you can see suddenly a student who have a different behavior in class, there must be something wrong. So I feel that, when you can see a student, they becoming withdrawn, they have little interest, and now stop engaging in activities, and they did not attend the classes, there should be a problem in them, but we must always have a look, because sometimes they also have extreme anger and act negatively. We don't know why suddenly. So there is a drastic change in them. So when there is a drastic change, we must make sure that it won't get worse. Why? Because some students, when they have so many problems, they will try to attempt suicide. So it's to pity them, because they feel they are alone in their thoughts, and tired of battling until they have lost their ability to think. But actually, we as teachers must always look when there is a differences in the speech. They talk, for example, like always feeling trapped, and they feel there's no reason to go on, and they feel they are burden to others, and they would like to end their life. On their mood, they have anxiety, they have loss of interest, they have humiliation, they have depression, and maybe their behavior also, they try to give away, for example, specific, giving away prizes, award prizes, and saying goodbye, visit people and say goodbye, and so on. There must be something going on, so they feel. There is also students, those who have this kind of behavior, whereby they try to search on internet how to take away their life and something like that. So I feel as teachers, we must take care of it.
Oh my goodness, those that's a lot of information, and you're right. There's so many students that engage in different behaviors, especially on the internet, and sometimes that's where a lot we lose a lot of students is on the internet, because the behavior may not necessarily be identifiable in the classroom, or identifiable in front of the natural eye, because they're in their lonely space, and when they have time by themselves, they go on the internet and they feed into a lot of other negative things. Like you said, when they're alone with their thoughts, there's just so many different things that can happen. And as teachers in the classroom, that's why it's so important that we build relationships with our students individually, so that we are able to make sure that when these changes occur, like Kay says, when these changes occur, we're able to identify what these changes are. And if we don't know our students, we're not going to. And so many students actually skate by or fly under the radar. And one of the other things you pointed out is behaviors. Sometimes their behavior, you may find them losing interest in different things. And also, some students may find interest in other things, and it may be something that is unhealthy. You know, you can identify what those unhealthy behaviors are, like smoking or drinking or joining a gang or just or cutting themselves, biting their nails, tearing their skin, just different things. But so as teachers, we have to make sure that we're looking out for these different things that that are showing us that our students are in crisis. So it is so important. Again, relationship building with our students, so important. I'm not sure if Kathy is back with us. Kathy, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I'm back. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right. So, one of the causes that I think, first of all, from Uganda, and one of the areas that I work in, which areas you find that there is a lot of poverty. Poverty is also one of the causes that causes mental illness into the minds of the children, into the learners. First of all, you find that these guys, they come to school and they're thinking about what they are going to eat, what they are going to, what's all about their school fees is not catered for. They don't have anything at school. They have not even brought pocket money. They haven't even brought something to eat. So meaning that such a scenario, it really makes a student can't be comfortable in class. The second point is parents don't have time. The world is now people about work, work, work. And so parents are no longer having time to talk, to have time with their children. So you find that a child comes to school when they are missing the mother, when they are missing the father. So even when you are teaching, they haven't seen the dad for the last maybe 1 week. They are waiting on Sunday or on the weekend to spend time with the dad. So meaning that such a scenario, it makes the child's mind not comfortable at school. Yeah, that's some of the causes that I came across, but there are very many. For example, maybe others like when somebody comes to school, for example, in Africa, we in Uganda, some of the schools, people are caned. So when you cane a student, automatically that child cannot concentrate in class. It's just a law that is coming up that teachers or schools should stop caning students, but somebody can be caned 25 in the classroom. So you find that such a scenario, whenever somebody sees a teacher, they run away. They can't even concentrate. I teach math. So when you come to class and you cane the students, you find that they cannot concentrate when you cane them. So yeah, those are some of the causes of mental health.
So thank you so much for sharing that. And those things are so important. So so let's go ahead and just think about what are some of the current data on students who have experienced mental health crisis pre-pandemic, and really how do we compare students' mental health pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, maybe globally, maybe in your country. Uh, so, Sir, would you like to jump in and just tell us thinking about your country or your school or just globally in general. What was mental health like pre-pandemic, and what does it look like compared to now?
So hi. So what's very interesting about it is that I think in Malaysia, our education system, we never really paid attention to mental health before the pandemic. But when the pandemic happened and students returned to schools, I think a lot of these mental health issues started to emerge, and people are noticing it. And I think I believe our Ministry of Education noticed it. They were able to detect all these mental health problems that are happening among students at schools. So I think last year our Ministry of Education launched a nationwide campaign. It's called Healthy Mind, and they wanted every school to conduct survey. And this kind of survey is it's endorsed by Ministry of Health in Malaysia. So we had to find out the students' mental health in terms of three levels, and that is suicidal thoughts, depression, stress, and anxiety. So I don't have the data of the whole nation because I think our Ministry of Education hasn't reported it yet, and but I do have the data at our school alone. So it's quite shocking because we have about when we conducted the survey last year, I think about 2 months ago, we had about 831 students, and out of 851 students, when we did the survey, 24% of them had suicidal thoughts, and that is 196. That's very high. 60% of them, and that was 131, they face extreme anxiety, and we are not just talking about any anxiety, but anxiety that's a bit extreme. And 12% of them, that 73, they were having really stressful moments. So it's shocking because when we look at the students, they look normal, they look happy, they came to school, it looked like they were just enjoying school. But when we did research, we were able to find out that they were actually struggling with some issues. So we decided to conduct further research to find out the triggers to their emotional struggle, and we found out that what made them sad. uh, Family play a very important part. They felt like they really felt that something bad will happen to their family, and this could be associated with the pandemic because during the pandemic, a lot of students in Malaysia, they had their families struggle with income, with basic necessities like food. So I think definitely the pandemic play a part into not just in it didn't just play a part in influencing the students' perceptions about life, but also it played a part on how the nation became more aware on the importance of mental health and how we need to pay attention to it. Okay, that these are all the data that I have, Keisha.
Thank you so much. Anyone would like to go ahead and share their experience pre-pandemic and post-pandemic of how their students have about their students' mental health? Anyone?
Yes, talking about Argentina and talking about my school, for example, and in relation to data, I can say that in pre-pandemic time, we had a few data in relation to that. Or there were some students we were put on the alert by school heads just to take them into consideration in case any mental health crisis could alter the ordinary development of our lessons. After the pandemic, I think that school heads and teachers, we all became more aware of the importance of mental health, and we were reminded all the time of paying attention to students' behavior in classes to see if they were going to undergo some kind of mental health crisis for anything we could say or we could do. And we were asked to be on the alert. We were asked to pay attention, but not only to prevent that those mental health crises could block the ordinary development of the lesson, but to help students overcome those crises. So I think that in post-pandemic times, we are much more conscious of how mental health can affect learning and can affect students' life in general, as you said.
Thank you so much. Anyone else would like to add? All right.
The number of students also who, I wanted to add just that the number of students who experience mental health problems after pandemic increased.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And I know that definitely in the US, we have an increase in mental health impacts because of the pandemic as well. I think um, emergency visits alone went up for children, went up 30% in the US. So I definitely know that that is an increase, and it could not, obviously, because of that, we know that those impacts go right into the classroom with those students who had most of those challenges. A matter of fact, was anxiety and depression, especially during the pandemic. And so we want to make sure that this is, if you're out there and you're a teacher and you don't know the extent to which your students have been impacted by the pandemic, you definitely need to make sure that you look at what the research says before the pandemic and what the research says now, because it's so important in terms of how we try to pull resources together to make sure that our students are well before they come into the classroom. So as we continue, let's go ahead and pull in some of our students. So I know, so Jakai, uh, why do you think student mental, I mean, you're in college. Why do you think students' mental health is so important as a student and just in general?
So, student mental health and pretty much mental health in general is very important. It's vital to our overall well being, our academic success, and our quality of life. So, it's important through every stage of our lives, especially as a student, because we're encountering new obstacles every day. And it pretty much determines how we handle our stress, how we make our choices and decisions, who we associate with, um, and essentially our physical health as well, which is really important as we're getting older. So it also affects our ability to focus and learn in the classroom, which you can't really be a good student if you can't do those things. And but poor mental health, poor mental health also impacts our grades, and it pretty much in college it could it could influence us to drop out or to become less active in the classroom.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And you are totally correct when you say drop out, because as a teacher, I know that quite a few of my students, I'm not, obviously the mental health is not the only reason why they drop out after the pandemic, but it was also one of the reasons why they drop out. Because, and like you said, mental health is so important in terms of the decisions that you make, because a lot of students, especially students from vulnerable communities, when they feel like they don't have any choices, they resort to negative self-talk and negative behavior, and that continues that spiral. And if we're not able as a community, and in those poorer communities, we know that there are not a lot of social services that are offered there, because obviously, because of the lack of funding, the poverty of the community, like Kathy said earlier. It's very important because some of those resources are not readily available for our students and our families. So of course, when students experience mental health and they don't have any outlet, positive outlet, and they don't have also proper health care, then it can also continue to impact their lives in general, like Jakai says, not just school life, but your overall well-being. So, uh, so Kathy, do you want to, well, Dr. Idek, I know you have some experience with this with your students. Could you go ahead and share as well?
Yes, thank you. So, yeah, I like the question. Yeah, why is it mental health important for students? Now, like what Jakai said before, it's closely related to academic achievement. That is pretty obvious. If students suffer, some sort of mental health, it will definitely affect their academic achievement. in a negative way. Now, other than that, there's this. There are certain skills. We call them socio-emotional skills, and I'm sure these are pretty universal, and we can link them with mental health. When the students they struggle with with their ability to understand their emotion and regulate them, and also it affects how they interact with others, they tend to suffer three symptoms. The first one is internalizing. So they will internalize their pain, and that can result in withdrawal and shyness. And this can worsen the situation because once the students withdraw from their peers, from the society, from their family, it will make it it will make it more difficult for them to talk to people, to express whatever that they have. And when it comes to mental health, it's very important for us to have healthy conversation about it and also to express our feelings to somebody that we trust. That's the first one, internalizing. The second one is externalizing. So they will start taking it out on others. This results in aggressive and impulsive behavior, especially on their peers. Now, in schools, bullying is very common, and it's very common in Malaysia. Our Ministry of Education has been trying very hard to stem it. And this is when there are two ends in the continuum. At one end, the students might withdraw, but at the other end, the students might become more aggressive on people around them, usually their peers, and then they can end up abusing or bullying their peers verbally or physically. And the third one, and this is also very important, we call it dysregulation. This results in physical changes that students might not be aware of. So when students struggle with mental health, they will not be able to sleep well, and they will not be able to eat well. And these are just the three symptoms that I would like to highlight when students struggle with mental health and what will happen to them at school. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. You mentioned two important things. You mentioned internally and externally, and those are so important. How students react when they are impacted internally, how they internalize those things and hurt themselves, and also externally how it impacts their lives and may cause harm to other people. So that's very important. And as teachers, we also need to know that as well, because if we have students who are not mentally who are going through mental health crises, it may also they may also become a threat to not just themselves, but also to their peers around them, and also to teachers and also our school community. So that's why it's so important that we need to make sure that we are being able to identify these things and address them as we see them. Uh, so, what are some of the traumas? Earlier I mentioned one of the trauma of obviously students going through losing home and family and so on with relation to what's going on in Turkey. So, Kathy and KA, could you just go ahead and also tell us what are some of the trauma that students
Excuse
experience?
me. Excuse me. Excuse
Sorry?
me. Can I
Go ahead.
add something for the previous question?
Go ahead. Go ahead. Sure.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. As we know, mental health lead us to two paths. First one is positive. When we go with positive path, that means creativity. Students will be creative, will give high level of achievement, and they will give positive behaviors. But the other hand, hand, the negative side, or that students who has students who have a low level of mental health will appear a low level of achievement and these behaviors, as well as bullying and violence. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And obviously, those were some important things to point out as well, the negative and positive impacts. So thank you so much for adding that. And Kathy and KA, just jump in and tell us what are some of the traumas that students experience that impacts their learning and the way they learn.
Yes, thank you so much. First of all, the traumas that comes with mental health are really many. but I'm going to highlight a few, like one or two that have really brought, I have witnessed with my students. One of it is self-esteem. First of all, when I say that sometimes when you find that parents don't have time at home for their children, they are ever on their toys, they are ever on their WhatsApp, on their phones, in the bedrooms. When they come to school, they don't have that self-esteem of maybe talking to other students. They can't stand in front, which brings them to have a mental illness that somebody can't even talk to a thousand of students in front of them. Some shy away. So that self-esteem, it brings about low self-esteem in the students at school because it affects their leadership roles. Somebody can't even say I'm a class captain of a class. They can't because they feel they are not worthy to be in that position. And then two is about depression. It's something very hard that you find that the student is really depressed, whereby they even collapse in class. I have had a couple of students collapsing in class because of depression. So when you find them in the school sick bay, in the school clinic, when nothing is itching, nothing, they are affected with nothing, but just because they are depressed. So you find that, so depression is one of the traumas that comes with mental illness. Thank you.
Okay. Mm, from what I feel, that when the student have this kind of mental health, it impact a lot to their way of they learn, whereby first thing is their engagement. The attendance will be surely decline. They don't have mood anymore to attend school, less proactive, and they change dramatically. They're less interest in study and unwilling to engage in discussion. Number two is the concentration. They struggle in concentrate, distracted by other challenges in life. They feel strain of their mental health, and they take longer to understand, and they cannot focus because it was distracted different way in, and then the performance as usual is disturbed, and the attainment, they are decline in result, unable to concentrate, unable to show good result, and unable to finish their assignment. Progression, they are not interested. They have blocked long-term thinking. They never think about long-term, and unengaged, and higher level of dropout. That's for sure. Another one is the energy and enthusiasm. Loss of energy, less enthusiastic, less sleep, withdrawn, unwilling, and not engaged with extra curriculums and social equations. And the last one is sociability and relationship. They have lost interest of to socialize, and depression, phobia, and less interest in making new friends. And sure, they will not build a good relationship with everybody. So that's the impact for them.
Thank you so much for adding that, KA. Like you said, it is so important. Before we move on, I would like to add just some facts, about mental health disorders, because I think it is so important that we do understand the gravity of what we're dealing with, especially with students. And mental health conditions constitute a major burden of disease for adolescents globally. In 2019 alone, it was estimated that 1 in 7 adolescents experience mental health disorders. And this really actually amounts to an estimated 166 million adolescents, which is 89 million boys and 77 million girls globally. That's the extent to which we are battling mental health illnesses with students. And when we think about college students, 60% of college students have been diagnosed with a mental health disorder. So put all of those in perspective. When we think about only the US, in my country, you know, there is a survey that was done by the National College Health Assessment, American College Health Association, that says that almost 3/4 of students reported moderate or severe psychological distress. And this is research from 2022. So that tells you the gravity of what we have been dealing with in the past to what we are actually experiencing today. And even so, almost 20% of adults are experiencing mental illnesses. And when we think about students, we can't really not think about adults, because these are some of the same adults that are in those classrooms that actually have to either be interact with our students, or also teach our students. And if they also don't have a hold on their own mental illnesses, that can also impact students. So we have to not just think about what students are experiencing, we have to also think about the gravity of the mental health challenges that adults are also dealing with. So as I share some of those statistics with you, please understand again the extent of which mental health illnesses is impacting our global community, not just at home, but in our global community, and not just students, but adults as well. So as we move forward, let me just have Jakai jump back in, and then we'll hear from Jimmy, because I think I've been long anticipating Jimmy just jumping in and sharing some information with us as well. So Jakai, I know that obviously you go to church, and you have been raised in the church as well. So what impact do you think, say, religion and culture have to have on students' mental health, and the challenges that they experience on a daily basis?
So, religion and culture have both positive and negative impacts on mental health for students. So, on the positive side, it can provide us with a sense of community, belonging, spiritual guidance, as I find myself as well. But it can also provide a sense of comfort and hope. But on the other hand, it can also cause stigma and shame and further isolation for people who are struggling with their mental health. And it's important for that when students go to school and we interact with others, that we feel as if we're not being judged, and that we can come to people about our issues and seek help, proactively seek help. And in schools as well, I think it's very important that we also educate ourselves about different religions and cultures, so we can also provide that help and understanding that people and students might need for an effective form of treatment or, therapy.
So, Jakai, as a follow-up question, so do you think that someone who is religious or devoutly religious may probably feel that shame of going to get medical help, since it's a form of since there is maybe science tied to that? What do you think?
I think that most people feel a sense of shame, and a lot of people keep it and internalize it because of that shame, and they feel as if maybe a lot of African American families as well feel that, oh, there's nothing wrong with you, you're fine, you're just into your head about it. But I think it's important that we also think about destigmatizing mental health, and how can we actively support these individuals so they don't feel as if I can't actively seek help for my mental health, or I should be ashamed that I'm feeling this way even though I can't control it.
Thank you so much. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because as a part of the African American community, you're right. Sometimes as Afri- in our community, we feel ashamed. We feel like we should put it to the side. We feel like it is, there's, and you have parents who will tell you there's nothing wrong with you. You're just going through the motion, brush it off and wake up and go to school the next day. And them not understanding the impact on your health. Jimmy, as a part of the LGBTQ community, plus community, Jimmy, won't you go ahead and just share with us, do you think that these students who are part of this community experience higher levels of mental health illnesses, um, you know, than the average student? What do you think?
Actually, yes. So when we hear about the LGBTQ, we know what that community is, but we might not think what they going through, or what the people from that community are feeling. Um, LGBTQ is one of the minority communities where they do not get enough representation. You know, people who are part of the community experience higher levels of mental health issues than the average student. And the reason is because they have to deal with all negative comments people make about them. They have to deal with schoolwork, stress, family problems, society's problem, and even they have to go through bullying in school. And some communities do not accept people from this community, and instead of supporting them, they look at them as if they did not exist. Also, people from this community have to deal with those kind of negative tasks, and beside or dealing with bullying, and beside dealing with school homework, they have to deal with the problems that are in real world. And I just want to share some facts that I found on the internet. And the Trevor Project estimates that at least one person from that community, between the ages of 13 to 24, attempts to kill themselves every 45 seconds in the United States. And the reason why they want to kill themselves is because of their mental health and how society treat them.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up some of those statistics as well. But when COVID actually just started, a few months after COVID started, about 68% of the LGBTQ plus youth reported symptoms of generalized anxiety, um, and about 3 to 4 in transgender. I mean, this is alarming, and as you said, they actually have so many different challenges to work through that the general population do not understand. And so it becomes a stigma for especially that community to go out and ask for help, because sometimes they feel so isolated because they don't think that people understand what they're going through, and so they feel like it's a battle that they're fighting on their own. So I definitely understand where you're coming from, Jimmy. So Jimmy, um, could you? I would like for you, if you are okay with that, to maybe share a personal experience.
Um,
And also, I also know that you're Christian as well. So could you also talk about how religion plays an impact in that, with with you being a college student?
Yes, actually, it's really big because it has a really big impact in my life. Because sometimes we want to do some things that are in the world, and as a Christian person, I'm not supposed to do that. And sometimes, I just want to have fun, and sometimes I want to, experience new things. But because of my religion, or because of everything, I have to, stop myself from it. And sometimes, uh, sometime my family, sometime other people tell me, oh, you have to choose your friends. And sometimes, we find better people outside of Christianity. And sometimes we cannot even deal with other people, talk to other people who are not from our religion, because that is like a sin, and we cannot have them as a friend. It's really sad, because I'm a friendly guy, and I like talking to people, and not being able to do that with them. It's really sad, because I like interacting. I like to meet new people, and and I feel like having friends really helps, because when you're going through to ups and downs, they're there for you. And as a Christian, we have to pray, and I know that for sure. And you know, but sometimes we need someone to be there for us, and not only praying, but sometimes we need someone to be there for us and like hear from those people. And we have to, sometimes we need a hug from someone, and sometimes we need like people to understand what we're going through. And sometimes because of religion, that is that is not letting us to have that.
I definitely understand that, because of your religion, and also because a lot of society either do not accept or do not understand the LGBTQ community. You probably feel isolated, and feel like you're alone in this. And sometimes, like you said, sometimes you just need a hug. And who do you reach out to when there's such a stigma around issues like these? And I know, Jimmy, one of the other things is that you're also an immigrant. So here we have a student who has all the makings of someone who should really be going through mental health crises, right? We have Jimmy, who is of course a college student, and of course, that brings on its own individual stress. He's a part of the LGBTQ community. He's a religious guy, and here we have Jimmy also, who is an immigrant. So, Jimmy, won't you go ahead and tell us, how does that factor into your experience and make you not really spiral out of control into unhealthy behaviors?
Um, so talking about being an immigrant student, I went through a lot when I first came to United States. You know, I went through bullying. I went through people making fun of me. People call me a beaner because I'm an immigrant, and they would make fun of me. And I didn't take the bullying. I didn't take those as a like, oh man, I don't belong over here. But instead, I took those bullying, those words as encouragement to keep going and to learn English. And it only took me like around 1 year and a half to learn English and to understanding how to defend myself. And since I went through bullying, and since I went through a lot, and teachers making fun of me, and some people told me you won't be able to go to college because of this, and because of your English you will never learn English. And I took that as encouragement, instead of being in depression or being sad about what people were telling me. I know have an accent in my English, and I'm proud of that. I'm proud of that because that shows where I come from, and that really shows who I am. And I'm not trying to change myself because I'm in the United States. I'm just trying to be a better Jimmy, to help my community and to help the students who are going through the same thing that I went through, and to help my community as well as international students, and to be the example for them to not give up. And I know, as an immigrant student, sometimes we get into depression, we get into like a lot of stress because we don't have the support of our family. And because our family do not speak English, we have to find everything by the or by ourselves. One example is that I'm a first generation student, so for me it has been really stressful because I have to learn what to do and what not to do. And sometimes money is a really big part of being a first generation student, and sometimes that also increase a lot of mental health issues because you like as a first generation student have to think about how I'm going to pay for college, and what if this do not work, and what if I'm not making my parents proud. And that's a really big like part of mental health in my life right now. But I know I'm going to get over it, and I know I'm going to become someone in my life.
Oh my goodness, Jimmy. I think that whoever is listening is so inspired by your story. And thank you so much. And if you all did not know, Jimmy was one of my students. And Jimmy, I just want to say that I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of your growth, your ability to have. I was Jimmy's English teacher, your ability to learn English in such a short time and to be able to go to college. You are a great representation of what it means when an immigrant comes to America in chase of the American dream, and you're really making it. You haven't gotten to where you want to be, to really take care of your family and to represent your community on a larger level. But I want to say to you that you're on the right path, and in terms of taking care of your mental health, in terms of being a role model for others and helping others to get through some of the same challenges that you have experienced. I just want to take this time to let you know that I am so proud of you, and you have so much out there waiting for you. So thank you so much, Jimmy, for also being very courageous enough to share your experience as well. And Jakai, we're going to come back to you. And as we think about the different roles that students play in school life, and also some of the challenges that they have to experience. I know you are an athlete, Jakai. Talk about the pressures that can lead to mental health crisis with athletes, students who are athletes. Just speak to the athletic community right now.
There's so much, so much that we go through. So there's the societal pressures, the physical pressures, the academic pressures. You want to be a good student, but you also want to be a good athlete. And you also want to maintain your relationships and have a good social life. It's so much. There's the intense pressure of competition and the need to perform well, while also balancing my math homework that I have to do every single day, or my English work or the paper I have to write every week. It's so much. And I don't think a lot of athletes get a lot of credit for pretty much what they go through, especially if they're seeking a career in that sport. But it's also very confining. It's also confining as well, because within our community, we also don't talk about mental health. And if you're not performing well, it's not, oh, you're struggling with something at home or you're having trouble balancing. It's you're not giving it your all, and you don't want it as much as you say that you do. So it's very, like I said, it's very confining, and it's hard for us to also go and seek help and find a community that we fit in with being all these different things.
So how do you manage when, how do you manage, say, expectations of your family? In wanting you, say, for example, if a family is really good in sports, how do you manage trying to balance that with the expectations of your family and of your coaches and of your teammates? How do you balance that in a way to protect your mental health? Or are you able to balance it? Are students able to balance it?
That's a very good question. I think it's like a thin line. It's a thin line between managing it and being like spiraling out of control. So, especially having like a family like mine, that everyone's involved in sports, you always want to perform well because you don't want to be the one left behind. Or you want to also be like, oh, I am able to perform just as well as you guys. I have my own successes. But it's very hard managing those expectations because you feel like you're always on a pedestal, or you're always being watched, and every move is one that's going to be criticized. So it's hard to manage, but I assure you there is a way to manage it with time management and making sure like you're communicating how you feel to your family and to your coaches as well, that hey, I may be struggling. And sometimes it's hard trying to figure out whether or not you're a student athlete or an athletic student. So it's all about prioritization and just figuring out what you're looking for, not what anybody else wants for you, but what you're looking for in yourself.
Ooh, that is, I love that. I love how you end that. And that's a great way to try to make sure that you stay positive and continue to have a growth mindset, is thinking about what you want out of it and not what others expect from you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I would like to also share some more data with you, that 35% of elite athletes suffer from mental health crisis, and 25% of college athletes also struggle from mental health illnesses. Okay, so those are some alarming statistics as well. So we do have, and most of these athletes who are struggling really say that the things that they suffer from the most in terms of mental health illness is mental exhaustion, anxiety, and depression. So it is important that some of our teachers also who are coaches, and our coaches who are also not teachers and not in the classroom with our students, still understand the impact of mental health illnesses, or crises that students experience on a daily basis, or the actual crises that they may experience based on the expectations that are placed on them, whether it's their family, whether it's their classrooms, whether it's their coaches, their teammates, and so on. So those things are so important. So I'm so glad you were able to give us some in-depth information on how athletes deal with mental health. So thank you, Jakai, and thank you, Jimmy, as well, for sharing your college experiences. So I'm going to bring back Dr. Idek, and KA and Silvana back into the conversation. Could you just go ahead and also tell me, so you've heard these college students share some mental health challenges. So can you also share a time when you've had students who have gone through mental health crisis, and how were you able to manage it?
So, hello. Um, since I'm an English language teacher, you know, it's very difficult to identify whether our students struggle with mental health or not. I mean, we can see the symptoms, but sometimes it's very hard for themselves to acknowledge they do have that problem. So, since I'm an English language teacher, I can identify whether students struggle with something from their work, especially in arts, for example, like poetry or drawing comics. And when you encourage them to write something that where they can just be themselves and express their own feelings. I remember reading one of my students' poem, and he was talking about how he wished to kill himself. And when I talked to him, and it appeared that he did plan to commit suicide before, and he has been swallowing some pills. So to me, one of the ways of how we can do this as a classroom teacher is to there's this strategy. I learned that from this foundation. It's a foundation based in Australia. Are you okay? So are you okay conversation, it consists of 4 stages. The first one is to ask a question to the students, like, are you okay? You are like really trying to find out whether she or he are in actually are in good condition, or whether they he or she is struggling with certain issues, uh, just to encourage them to open up. And once they talk about their problems, once they're willing to share their problems, uh, it's the second stage, which is to listen with an open mind and without judging or criticizing them. And then we proceed to the third stage, in which we encourage action. And at this stage, we really encourage action, not just to give them advice, but to get them to do something. And and the way we talk to them is that we don't use the word you, like you have to do this and you have to do that. We either use the word I, like what can I do for you? This is what I'm going to do for you. Or the best way to do it is to use the word we. So we are going to do this. So we might be able to do this. Just to figure out the solution to help the students. And then the next stage is that for us to follow up with the students, maybe in few days or in few weeks, just to follow up whether they have taken the necessary action. So these 4 steps, are you okay conversations, a validated strategy that has been developed by a foundation in the United States. So I'll say that's how I will deal with the students who struggle with these issues.
Yeah, I would like to share experience with my students. Before I teach special kids, and I have this wonderful student. Her name is Amy. When she was 14 years old in primary school, she did push a girl until in the toilet until that girl have head injury. Since then, when she's going to go to secondary school, many of the school of the teachers at the secondary school refuse to accept her because they are afraid, because she seems to be very violent. And then I told her mother, I said, come over to my school. I love those kind of kids because at least I can learn something. So Amy came to my school. Amy was a very big size. When she is having multiple handicap, she have autism, and she also have anxiety and depression. So when she came to my school, the first day, where while I was the mother is trying to introduce her, and while the mother was talking to me, suddenly she poked a girl's eyes and she spit on her face and he pinched her stomach. Uh, and the girl burst into tears. It just in a sudden that you cannot even realize that it happened. So because Amy have what do you call that? They have some thoughts in their mind that she feel that she want to hurt that girl. You know, sometimes she told me, teacher, I want to hurt her. I want to poke her eyes. I want to pinch her, something like that. You know, so she feel that she like to control everybody, and then and I said to myself that I must do something with her because I feel everything is dangerous in case there is any sharp objects or pencils even is already too much danger. So we bring it away, all those scissors, pencil at a table, and then Amy will just walk away to the girl and just disturb, that they push her, something like that. So what I did is I put her near the wall and I just sit next to her. So every day, Amy will just sit next to me. So it's difficult for her to go out from the place. So what I did with her is I do a talking therapy. You know, I talk to her, I praise her, I make them I make so that she feel that she's being loved, you know. Then I praise her, I hug her, and then I talk to her, I give attention to her. And then when she went back home, then she'd say, today teacher KA hugged me. She feels so happy, you know. What I feel there is lack of attention in her. So once a while I call her at home and I ask her what did she do, what did she eat, and something like that. So I tell her that if you are good, I will give you a gift. So I make a behavior modification for her whereby I make a chart. If on that day she shows a good behavior, I will paste a sticker. Until a week, when she shows a good behavior in a week, I will give her a gift. For example, a token such as coloring book, or sometimes shampoos from the hotel that we get it from the hotel and we give her as a present and she enjoy it. And then when we see that her behavior increasing, um, then we make a monthly chart whereby we have a bigger token. For example, in a month, if you are good, Amy, I will bring you for outing, or I will bring you to token trip. You know, we bring them out, you know, for holiday. But in case Amy shows bad behavior, we will reprimand her from what she love. For example, Amy love to do massage, you know, like a hand massage, you know. So I said that you will not get involved. So she feel bad. So since that when she feel that you love her, you have a good relationship with her, then the behavior improving. So it is interesting because one thing that these kids need is attention, love, and tender care. So I tell Amy, you don't have to control your thoughts. You just have to stop letting them control you. Because if you want to be loved, you must show good behavior. So that's my story with Amy.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you so much for sharing that. That was very inspirational. And it reminds us again that it is important that teachers really understand their students. And we got to get back to a place of love and understanding. We can't just think that every behavior with our student is somehow just write them off because of bad behavior, or really kind of place some kind of label on our students because of their bad behavior. We have to figure out where that behavior stems from and then really treat it with love. We got to bring love back into the schools. We got to bring love back into the classroom. And we, as teachers, it's so important, again, for us to build relationships and understand our students so we can know when these things are happening and address them accordingly. Silvana, do you want to go ahead and jump in on this conversation?
Well, thinking about a particular case I had to face last year mainly, we used to have a student who had started to undergo mental health problems before the pandemic because of anxiety mainly and depression. And well, during pandemic time, when we had online lessons, it was very difficult for her to connect. She hardly connected, and she hardly submitted her work. Or when she did so perhaps with the help of others, because she was at home. And she submitted all her tasks together at the end of the year or at the end of the term in order to get a mark. However, when time went back to go to school, to face school, well, it was very difficult for her to be able to cope with the school homework, with the different school tasks, and the exams were really stressing for her. So one day it happened that when she was going to start doing a test, in fact, when we went back to school, we organized tests in pairs or in threes to avoid making students feel uncomfortable. But well, after some time, we started having individual exams, and well, it was that moment when I was able to realized that my student was undergoing a kind of mental crisis because she bursted into tears. She started getting red in her face. So, well, I had to take the decision of approaching her. I started talking to her. I told her to stop doing her exam. And well, what I realized was that she was undergoing a strong feeling of frustration because she had the feeling that she wasn't able to solve anything on her own. So, well, we started talking for a long time in individual basis, and well, we arranged to do the test the following week. Well, when the next class came, what I decided to do was to cut the test into different pieces, short pieces. So whenever she completed one of those pieces, she had a strong feeling of achievement. And well, that was the way she was able to overcome the situation because she was more motivated and she was able to cope with her feeling of frustration by dividing her task into small parts.
Thank you so much for that. I'm so glad that you, as teachers, that's what we do. We figure out solutions to different problems that come into our classroom, right? And I really appreciate the fact that you understood what her challenge was, and in terms of making sure that she still feels some sense of accomplishment and achievement, and to continue to uplift her and raise her self-confidence, you went ahead and differentiated for her or scaffolded for her. It's so important that as teachers, we understand where our students are and where we need them to be, and how we can also help them to meet those small goals until they're able to meet those larger goals. So again, differentiation and scaffolding is so important, especially for our students who feel so overwhelmed with academics because of other challenges that they're experiencing in their personal and social lives. And we know for students, especially students between the ages of, say, 12 to 18, they're going through a lot of social pressures. They're still finding themselves, they're adolescents trying to, meet approval, seek approval, so it's so important that we learn what their needs are and address them head on. So I know I find myself coming back to you, KA. because I know your 34 years of experience, is so valuable in this time when we're really thinking about student mental health, because of course you've had so much experience with students. And one of the things that I want to really address is, I don't want our audience to think, or anyone who is listening to us to think, that as we're talking about mental health, we are confusing it with students with disabilities or exceptionalities. It's totally different. We don't want it to be confused. Of course, I know, KA, you talked about earlier that, you did say some of the disabilities that students have, and as you were talking about some of the mental health challenges, but I also want to make sure that we're separating those, even though we know that students with disabilities also have mental health challenges. So could you go ahead and let us and just give us a little bit more information on that separation, KA?
Mm, yeah, actually, um, mental health, there are two categories. One is for others, and one also involved with these special needs as students with disabilities, because besides they have illness such as Down syndrome, autism, cerebral palsy, they also have mental illness. In life, three domains important in people's life is physical, mental, and emotional. And our learning disability students have problem on all those three parts. These students experience more uh, frequently more on mental health problem than others, because these special kids, besides they have disability on their own, they also have mental health. So they react differently. It depends on the background, health, or support system such as family, teachers, friends, or society, because it will impact their thinking, perception, behavior, feelings, and relationship. For example, I have a student, a two Down syndrome student, twins, Yusuf and Yunus. Actually, to take care of two Down syndrome students is a bit difficult, but because they were raised by a family that full of love, laughter, tender care. So they grown up in happiness. Whereby another student, Shazrin, he is having mental retarded, and then he only one he is the only child in a family who has those problems, and yet the family ignore him, and you can see that how he don't really live in a good environment. It's all depend on the support, it depend on the background. So we feel that, when this kind of student who have anxiety and who have depression, they need support with everybody, because they will feel isolated. They cannot focus, and sometimes they will throw tantrums, and it will disturb the whole class. If a student meltdown or show emotional breakdown, it will disturb the whole class, and you cannot even learn. There is a student of mine, Muzaffar. He was diagnosed as autism spectrum disorder, whereby suddenly he will burst yelling non-stop. Because sometimes these autism kids, they might um, cannot resist to noise. For us, the noise is normal, but for them, it's too loud. And sometimes when there is a new environment or a new people that enter the class, he feels stressed. So whenever he yell, you just ignore him. You do ignoring technique whereby you never ever respond when he bursts or when he make noise. But when he show good example, then only you praise him, and then ask him, tell him that to stay positive and always remind him of his strengths. Praise him of a good manners when he is calm, because this student, you must always tell them, you don't have to be positive all the time. It's perfect. It's perfectly okay to feel sad, angry, annoyed, frustrated, scared, or anxious. It's okay. Having feeling doesn't make you a negative person. It just makes you human. Only that you must know how to control it, and so that the society will accept you.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for sharing that. Because a lot of times students who are going through mental health challenges, um, again, like Jimmy had said earlier, you know, when you display those things in society, it can create stigmas around who you are, especially because if you come from so many different backgrounds and you have so many different identities that rest upon you, it can create a lot of those stigmas, and people may misunderstand who you are or why you're displaying yourself. And I'm glad you point out it's okay to feel angry, it's okay to feel hurt, it's okay to feel all these emotions, but it's our responsibility to make sure that we help students and give them the tools in order to have positive outlet and how to make sure they're managing their emotions. When we talk about social emotional development and social emotional well-being, those are the things that we're talking about. I know that the school that I teach at, we actually have a social emotional learning committee, a SEL committee, where we make sure that all of our teachers are involved in checking in on all of our students every single day. Every class they go into, there's a check-in, because it's so important that we make students be aware of their emotions, be able to manage their emotions, and like Jimmy said earlier, be able to make good decisions, and have all of the information that you need to be able to make good decisions, to be able to be self-aware, and also have that social awareness that you're sharing the space with others around you, and that creates a lot of emotional well-being for our students and help them to navigate in their space, especially when they are going through different challenges. They're able to manage their emotions very well. Cassell.org, if anyone's listening, Cassell.org has really great tools and information and curriculums and a lot of information around social emotional learning and how teachers can institute it in their classrooms every single day to make sure that our students are emotionally well. Emotional wellness is so important. So thank you, KA, for sharing that. And with that, you did also talk, KA, about having a positive mindset. So I'm going to bring Jimmy back into the conversation, um, Dr. Sultan, back into the conversation. What are some of the benefits as students are going through those mental health crises? What are some of the benefits of having a positive mindset? And Jimmy, you can share an example as a college student. Sometimes it's really difficult to have a positive mindset. So how do you navigate that?
So actually, I was thinking about the unit that we were having a U class last year when I was a senior in the high school. I remember we talked about positive mindset, and and at the beginning of the school year, I was like, "What is positive mindset?" And I was like, "Why are we learning this?" And I was making a lot of like question about it, like, "Oh, I won't need this in college." But let me tell you right now, it's one of the things that I help has helping me a lot to be positive and to be organized in college. And the benefits of having a positive mindset is really important. It helps you not only to be organized, but or think positive. But when we have a positive mindset, it helps us to be less stressed. It makes us do activities that makes us to be happy, and we think more mature. And when we are in depression, we know what to do. It also helps. Well, it has helped me with a coping skill during my stressful times, and it gives me more satisfaction about life. And it also gives me more motivation to get up every morning, and do positive things, and give back to the people that I'm surrounded with.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Dr. Sultan, you want to jump in?
Yeah.
How do you help your students to have positive mindsets?
Uh, no doubt, all research showed that showed that there is a relationship between positive mindset and the academic achievement, as well as critical and creative thinking. So every day we should encourage our students, show their abilities. Also, even if they have some negative behaviors, we have to encourage them how to correct their mistakes. This will lead them to be positive, have a positive minded, and that will lead to the lower levels of anxiety and pain. That's
Oh, Thank you so much for sharing that. And I would like to also just share, thank you, Jimmy, for that. And as I mentioned before, that Jimmy was one of my students. So yes, that's one of the first things I do with my students. Before we even begin learning, we have to make sure that students understand their purpose for coming to school, understand what they want out of school, and just understand the benefits of learning. It's not just about academics, but how do you make sure that you cater to the whole child, not just their physical, not just their academics, but also their mental. We know that students do need a physical safe space to be in. We know that they need academic rigor to grow and achieve, but we also need to make sure that we're taking care of their mental health and making sure that they approach it with a positive mindset. So one of the first things we do before we even start the year is I make sure that my students develop a mantra. And Jimmy can tell you, the mantra, they say it every single day before they start. And I don't develop the mantra for them. My students, as a collaborative community, as a collective community, they come up with their own mantra. They talk about all the positive things that they want to say to themselves. And in order to lead the conversation, we talk about growth mindset. So if you're the audience and you're listening, think about introducing Carol Dweck's growth mindset to students. So that's what I introduced to my student, Carol Dweck, a growth mindset. And also Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. One of the things that I know that my principal had done, Dr. Carlos Beato, did when he started the school is he bought all these books. And I was wondering why he bought those books. And then he made all of the students start reading these books. And it was called 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens. So if you are an administrator or if you're a school teacher, anyone in the education community that's listening, these are 2 great resources that you can introduce to your students. Make them read it, read excerpts with them in class, and go through different activities with them. So I talked about using Cassell.org for social emotional development for your students. Now, Carol Dweck's A Growth Mindset, and Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People or 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens. Those are 3 great resources that can also help with students' mental health. So Jakaya and Dr. Idek, let me bring you into back into the conversation as well. So what are some ways that you think teachers, support staff, administrators, apart from some of the things that I just mentioned and Jimmy just mentioned, what are some other things that these people, teachers and administrators, your school community can actually do to help and foster students' well-being, whether it be in K to 12 or in a college setting?
So like you previously mentioned how having social emotional these learning activities that you can do at the beginning of classes, like morning meditation, mindfulness moments, having group discussions, and listening to each other, and incorporating encouraging like students to take breaks and take care of themselves, having these self-care activities. I know personally in my classes we always have a mental health day that you can always take anytime throughout the semester. You just let the teacher know. You don't have to tell them what you're going through, just that you would like to take a day to work on yourself. And in these days, we do, and sometimes in our classes, we do them too, taking breaks from our technology for the day or having a moment where you just be still and present in the moment. So I think those are extremely important, especially as we're always busy, we're always moving, and sometimes we forget that self care is the best care, especially for your mental, your emotional, your physical, your social. It's the best care for everything. So I think we need to prioritize that as well in classes.
So Jakai, one of the things I want to ask, what are some of the resources on your college campus that helps to enforce some of those positive self-care behaviors?
So my college campus has an abundance of resources, some that I use as well. We have therapy sessions, group therapy, and individualized therapy, group sessions. We have hotlines on campus. I believe the national hotline for the US is 988, where they have someone 24 hours that you can talk to. And we have student hotlines as well, where we can just text and just let them know that we're going to, even if we just need a place to rant and talk about how we feel. There's an abundance of resources, and our school is they do a very good job of encouraging us to use those resources and informing us of the resources that are on campus.
All right, thank you for that. And that's University of Maryland. Dr. Sultan?
I believe it's me.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so I think it's very important to create that culture of openness about mental health in school, and I always think that having a mental health campaign is very important. It can help to raise school awareness, like everyone at the school to be aware of mental health, and it's very powerful if it comes from the school principal himself or herself and the teachers who can address this in school assemblies. So usually in Malaysia, we always have school assemblies every week where everyone gathers in one place. It's very important to create that safe space where teachers and students, for us to acknowledge that mental health is real and to create that safe space where people can have conversation about it. I think that's very important. And as for teachers, it's good that you brought up socio-emotional learning, Keisha, because I think it's not really that popular, or it's not that known at all in Malaysia, that kind of pedagogical approach. So we can always do CPD, continuing professional development for teachers, to train teachers on how to integrate this into the class. And we can also have, like designate a space at the school for mental health. So, for just students or teachers to calm down, to feel, positive about themselves. And I think it's also very important to conduct research from time to time to find out about the students and the teachers and the staff mental health, and so that we can have the statistic and we can share it with everybody, and just figure out what are we going to do about it. Okay, that's all.
Thank you so much. And you made one important point, that creating just a small space where people can go when they need that break in a school is so important, whether it be students or adults. One of the things that I know that my school does really well is that I'm also a part of the social emotional learning committee at my school. We actually have a committee, and we make sure we intentionally develop a committee. And I made sure that I'm in the process of completing a master's in social emotional development, because I think it is so important that we understand what our modern students especially are experiencing in our education community. And because of that, I'm able to really help the social emotional committee to create these safe spaces. And there are obviously other teachers at my school who have great background in social emotional learning, and we all make up the social emotional learning committee. And we make sure that at the beginning of the year, every single classroom in our school has a SEL corner, has a social emotional corner. We have little teddy bears there. We have little pop things. We have the little twisters. We have just little things that students we have headphones, music, just a little corner where they can take a break if they feel so overwhelmed. A lot of times when students feel overwhelmed and they're acting out in their classroom, the first instinct is put them out of the class, send them to an administrator, send them into in-school suspension, send them into a detention. But we understand, especially with our modern day students, is that using those punitive measures does not help with achievement. It actually helps to increase the achievement gap. So we have to continue to figure out positive ways and positive outlets for our students, not just in our communities, but inside of our school, not just inside of our school building, but inside of our own classroom. And that's also a part of great classroom management, in order to make sure that your students who come in your classroom feel safe and feel respected, feel valued in that space. And that's when learning really begins, when students feel like they have a place in your classroom and they have a positive outlet, and that you care about them enough to make sure that those things are visible and also available, and those services and spaces are available for them when they need it. So Kathy, jump back in with us, Kathy. So how do you, I know sometimes because of the trauma that our students go through, and we're just going to answer these last few, go through a few questions quickly. Now that we know that our students experience so many different challenges, how do we really discuss these mental health issues with these students without triggering them? How do we go about doing that? Kathy?
Yeah, thank you so much, Keisha. So one of the things that I have realized in schools is that teachers, they need to create what we call a private conversation. Like if you find this child is really depressed, don't go about talking it, criticizing them in class. Like, yeah, some teachers, they come, they start criticizing the students in class, which creates more depression, creates more mental illness to this student. Another thing is that we as teachers, we can have maybe one of the things that we have at our school is a suggestion, is where we have a box. So I have had most of the people here, they have the suggestion like the emotional corner, which Keisha has talked about. But for us, we have a box. So that suggestion box or that box, the student can be able to experience, to write about what they are going through in school. Because you find some of the mental illness is also caused by the teachers, by the environment in the school. So these students, they should be able to go and write something on paper, drop it, and then maybe the administration gets a day in a week where they are able to read out the student suggestions, the student feelings, and things like that. Another thing is that we can have a school counselor. Like if a school can hire a teacher, can hire a counselor on board, because you find that some of the students may not be open to all the teachers or even the people who are near them. But these counselors, they know how to talk to the students, they know how to identify them, they know how to really trigger something, and then they help the students. So I think as teachers, if there is a school counselor in school and there is a problem of a student that you may not be able to handle, it's better you talk to the counselor, explain everything, and then refer the student to the counselor instead of maybe coming and you traumatize the student in class. Another thing is like maybe you can talk to the parents. One thing I've realized that even parents, they don't know their children at home. But when you invite the parents, you try to interrogate, you try to say maybe this girl or boy is going through this situation, this and that, according to the way we have talked to him, the way we have observed them, the way we have observed her. So I think it's one of the things that because a child may not even want to go back home. I can give a scenario. I used to work in a school where we had a kindergarten, nursery, primary, and secondary. But there is this young girl in the kindergarten school. Whenever the mom would put this girl in the vehicle to drop her to school, the girl would dress up. Imagine a 5-year girl, child dresses up immediately when you say let us go to school. So the mother got concerned and said, why is this girl always wants to be at school? Even picking her, she would get concerned. So until this girl, the parent came and confided to the teacher to find out why the girl loves the school. And the girl said to the teacher that they made cancer at home. So I think it's also good to work with the parents so that we understand our children. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm just going to share a few more resources. And just to reiterate what Kathy just added, support staff in schools is very important. Make sure you get those counselors involved. Once you identify that your student is going through a mental health crisis, if you're not able to attend to it in that moment, make sure that you reach out to support staff. try to do community circles. That's another way of addressing mental health issues in your class and getting everyone involved, and also using the restorative justice approach. So support staff, community circles, and the restorative justice approach. Jakai, could you jump in quickly? And we're going to keep our comments really brief as we try to close up with a lot of solutions that we're going to give our audience. How can we destigmatize mental health in our school communities, Jakai, as a student?
I think there are four very important ways that we can do that. Number one would be education. Educating yourself, your family, anyone around you about the importance of mental health, what mental health and mental illness is, and the importance of seeking help and support. I think the second one would be normalizing it. So, normalizing it in conversations with your peers, your family, making it a normal topic so people aren't afraid to reach out for help when they need it. And support. Support is a very important one, to show that even if someone you don't specifically know anybody or are unable to identify that someone needs help, showing that you offer your support and that you are open and willing to listen and be that rock for someone who may need it is a step in itself. And lastly, advocating for others and mental health in general, speaking up about better mental health services for people. If you see a need, communicate it and let others know how they can help. And I think that's four very important ways that we can help destigmatize mental health in our schools, our communities, and in our households as well.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That is so important that you share those specific pointers. Thank you again, Jakai, as a college student, and you've shared those tips, but those tips go for just about the general population, and education is first. So we need to make sure that, again, and this is what this session is about educating the overall global population about student mental health and just mental health in general, and how we destigmatize that. So as we're coming to a close, we thank you so much for sticking in with us and for getting some of these tips. So I'm going to just go around the room really quickly and just how do you think that as we address these ongoing issues with mental health in our society, what are some of the things that you would like to see change? What are some of the things that you would like to see change as we continue to address these mental health crises that our students and adults are going through in our community? Dr. Idek, I'll start with you first, and we'll just go through quickly.
So yeah, I'll just also do it very quickly. So I think it's very important for our society to realize that we all have self-talk, and self-talk is split into two: negative self-talk and positive self-talk. So let's go towards positive self-talk. And whenever we have negative self-talk, and if our students experience they display negative self-talk, we can teach them how to convert these negative self-thoughts to positive self-thoughts, because positivity is always the most important thing. That's all. Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody.
So important. Thank you. KA?
Yes, what I would like the society to change is eliminate stigma and discrimination, because negative attitude and negative treatment, it will make the problem worse. Um, Avoid thinking that those who have mental health are dangerous, criminals, and evil. It's time to change the way people think and act about mental health problems. Build relationship with people who seem to have mental health problems. They need a support network. They need your help. Maybe your initiative can save a life. Kindness has health benefits and make the world a less stressful place.
Kindness. Thank you. Silvana?
Well, I would like society to pay as much attention to mental health as they do to physical health. I think that we should be aware that both of them are as important, and that as we do our best to be healthy, physically speaking, we should try to be healthy, mentally speaking, creating a balance between working life and pleasures And the same happens at schools. I think we should keep a balance between work and those moments in which students feel that we care for them, that we respect their interests, that we try to motivate them.
Thank you. And we have about 1 more minute left. Jimmy? All right, we'll move it down to Dr. Sultan.
Yes, thank you. Mental health is so important. The attitude should be positive toward mental health. Mental health is different from madness. Thank you.
Thank you. Important. Kathy? All right, I'm not sure if we lost Kathy, but thank you so much to our esteemed panel of teachers and students. Thank you so much for those of you who have tuned in on Facebook or YouTube to watch this. And I'm hoping that you received a lot of different tips that you can take back to your country, to your classrooms, to your school building, to your community, because it's so important that we learn how to not just be at peace in our society, but we learn to be at peace in our homes and learn to be at peace within ourselves. And addressing mental health illnesses will make sure that happens. Be a support system to someone today. And as Jakai said, make sure that you educate someone, support someone today. We all need that support, and we all need a bucket of kindness, or a cup of kindness, a glass of kindness, something. Kindness. And mental health is not madness, like that was just said. So recognize student mental health. During this Student Mental Health Week, it comes to a close tomorrow, February 12th. It has been observed by the Varkey Foundation and in partnership with CHEG, who has launched this inaugural Student Mental Health Week on a global scale. So every year, February 6th to February 12th will be Student Mental Health Week. So help us to continue to spread the education in destigmatizing mental health and make sure that all of our students are okay. Are our students okay? It is up to us to make sure that they're okay. Are our teachers, as adults, okay? It's up to us to make sure that we take on all of the information that we have received and apply them, not just be hearers, but also doers and practitioners, and also be advocates as well for mental health, because someone needs you today. You may be that person that saves that person's life by just offering a little bit of kindness and a little bit of understanding and a little bit of support. Thank you for sharing this time with us. And if you need anything, please email me at kthorpe@uselite.org, or you can go to check.org or the Varkey Foundation, varkeyfoundation.org. These are some ways that you can get to keep in touch with us. Thank you for sharing this moment with us. Again, this has been Student Mental Health Week, Destigmatizing Mental Health. Have a wonderful rest of your day.